There's a quiet kind of childhood that almost no one talks about openly. It did not look painful from the outside, and that is exactly the problem with it. The child seems mature, calm, helpful, thoughtful, responsible, and emotionally aware beyond their years. Adults praise them for being so grown up, so easy, so understanding, so wise, so steady. But underneath that calm surface, something heavier is quietly happening inside their small nervous system. They are not just being mature. They are managing emotions that were never theirs to carry. They learned early that the adults around them needed support, comfort, attention, or emotional regulation often. So the child stepped in silently, without being asked, becoming the steady one in the room. Psychology suggests this pattern shapes the entire identity of the child long into adulthood. It is called parentification, and it slowly rewires how that child relates to love, safety, and worth. By the end of this, you will understand the hidden patterns this child carries forever. You'll see why they overgive, over-explain, overfunction, and secretly feel exhausted by closeness. You will also see why they struggle to receive love without flinching, doubting, or quietly pulling away. A child who felt responsible for adults learned one painful lesson very early in life. Their needs were inconvenient. Other people's emotions came first. That belief became their internal blueprint. They stopped asking for comfort because comfort was something they were expected to give, not receive. They became expert observers, watching faces, tones, moods, and tiny shifts in the room constantly. This hyper-awareness was not a gift. It was a survival skill built from quiet, ongoing emotional pressure. Their nervous system learned to scan for tension, before it scanned for safety, joy, or rest. That scanning never really turns off even decades later, even in calm and loving relationships. As adults, they often feel responsible for everyone's mood, comfort, silence, disappointment, or unspoken stress. If someone seems off, they immediately wonder what they did wrong, even when they did nothing. This is not insecurity. This is a trained reflex from years of managing unstable emotional weather. They became the emotional thermostat of the home, adjusting themselves to keep everyone else regulated. And no one ever told them that this job was not theirs to take in the first place. Here's what is really happening underneath that responsible, capable, dependable adult you see today. They learned that being needed felt safer than being loved, because being needed felt more predictable. Love felt conditional, fragile, and unreliable, but usefulness felt like a guaranteed place at the table. So they built an identity around being helpful, strong, low maintenance, and emotionally undemanding for everyone else. They became the friend everyone calls in crisis, but rarely the friend anyone checks on first. They became the partner who handles everything quietly while slowly disappearing inside their own relationship. They became the coworker who carries extra weight without complaint, then wonders why they feel invisible. This reveals something deeper about how early responsibility quietly reshapes the meaning of connection itself. For them, connection often equals contribution. If they stop giving, they secretly fear being quietly forgotten. That fear is not dramatic or loud. It is subtle, constant, and woven into their daily choices. They overextend, overthink, overfunction, and then feel guilty for being tired by the very effort they chose. Psychologists call this an internal loyalty to a role that was assigned long before they could refuse. The child agreed to be responsible because saying no was never really an option back then. Now the adult version still says yes automatically, even when their body is begging them to rest. You can see this in tiny moments that most people would never notice from the outside. They apologize for things that are not their fault, just to keep the emotional space comfortable. They feel uneasy when someone does something kind for them without expecting anything in return. They downplay their pain, shrink their wins, and quietly wait for someone to finally truly see them. Many of them secretly crave validation, but feel deeply ashamed for wanting it at all. They were taught that needing reassurance was weakness, so they hide that need behind quiet competence. They check messages, replay conversations, and wonder if they were too much, too little, or too needy. This is not vanity. It is the lingering echo of a child who felt their worth was conditional. Their self-worth got tangled with usefulness, and untangling that knot takes patience, awareness, and gentle truth. Here is something subtle that almost always shows up in adults who carried this hidden role early. They struggled to rest without guilt. Stillness feels unsafe because stillness once meant something was wrong. When the house got quiet as a child, that silence often signaled tension, sadness, or emotional collapse. So now as adults, calm moments can secretly trigger a strange, uneasy alertness inside their chest. They fill the silence with tasks, productivity, helping, planning, or worrying about people they love deeply. Their nervous system equates doing with safety and being with vulnerability, even when nothing is actually wrong. This is why they often feel burned out, but cannot fully explain where the exhaustion comes from. It is not just the work, it is the emotional labor of always being the steady one. They are tired in a way that sleep does not fix, because the tiredness lives in identity. Another hidden pattern shows up clearly in how they handle other people's emotions in the present. They feel responsible for moods that are not theirs, even when they logically know they are not. If a partner is quiet, they assume something is wrong with them, not with the partner's day. If a friend pulls back, they immediately review every message they sent for some invisible mistake. This reveals how deeply they internalize the belief that other people's emotions are their personal responsibility. It is not random anxiety. It is a learned pattern from a childhood spent reading emotional weather constantly. The truth is this: you are not broken for feeling this way, and you are not too sensitive. You were a child placed into a role that was far too heavy for your small shoulders. You adapted brilliantly. You became kind, aware, attuned, and capable, and those traits are genuinely beautiful. But they were built on a foundation of survival, not safety, and that foundation can be rebuilt. You are allowed to keep the awareness without keeping the burden that originally created that awareness. You can be caring without being responsible for every emotion in every room you walk into. That distinction is small in language, but it is enormous in how your body experiences daily life. Here is a practical shift that can quietly change everything for someone who carried this early role. Start noticing the moment you feel responsible for someone else's emotion that is not actually yours. Pause and silently ask yourself this: whose feeling is this, and whose job is it to handle it? Most of the time, the honest answer is that the feeling belongs to them, not to you. Your job is to care, not to fix, manage, absorb, or carry their emotional weather alone. That single question can begin to gently separate your identity from the role you were assigned. Over time, your nervous system learns that other people's moods are not personal threats to your safety. You begin to relax in rooms where, for years, you did not even realize you were tense. You start to notice when you are overfunctioning, and you choose to step back without guilt. You start to receive care without flinching, without deflecting, and without immediately offering something in return. You begin to understand that being loved for who you are is not the same as being needed. Being needed felt familiar, but being loved feels foreign at first, and that is completely normal. It is not random. It is the natural response of a heart that learned love through usefulness. Here's the deeper truth that most people in this pattern never get to fully hear clearly. You were never too much. You were too young to be holding what they handed you. Their emotions were not your fault. Their stability was not your project. Their pain was not yours. You did the best a child could possibly do with the job no child should ever receive. And now as an adult, you are allowed to put that job down, slowly, gently, and completely. You are allowed to be the one who is checked on, comforted, asked about, and prioritized too. You are allowed to have needs without earning them, and to rest without justifying the rest first. You are allowed to be supported without immediately worrying about how to repay that support somehow. This is not selfishness. This is the long overdue rebalancing of a story that was never fair. The child who felt responsible for adults grew up to become deeply aware, capable, and quietly strong. But strength built from pressure deserves to evolve into strength built from choice, peace, and self-trust. You do not have to abandon your kindness to heal. You only have to redirect part of it. Some of that kindness, that patience, that endless understanding finally belongs to you, fully and unconditionally. You can become the steady, gentle, attentive presence in your own life that you were for everyone else. That is where real change begins, quietly, in the way you speak to yourself when no one watches. If this resonated with you, sit with it for a moment before scrolling away into the next thing. And if it helped, follow along for more honest psychology that makes the invisible parts of you visible.